Most financial advice online is broken. It tells everyone to do the exact same thing. Max out your 401k, cut out your lattes, buy a house, no matter if you're making $40,000 or $400,000 a year. But the truth is, the smartest financial moves at $40,000 is completely different than the smartest financial moves at $250,000. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact financial priorities at each income level: 40, 75, 100, and 250 plus. And here's the key. Your strategy evolves as the income grows, but the order never changes. Foundation, income growth, investing, ownership, optimization. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly where you are on that ladder and what your next move should be. Before we talk about income, let's get one thing straight. Income does not fix broken money habits. It magnifies them. I've seen people making $300,000 a year who are completely broke, and I've seen people making $50,000 a year who are quietly building real wealth. The difference is the foundation. Here's what every single person needs, no matter your income. First, 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund. This is cash sitting in a high-yield savings account that you never touch unless something actually goes wrong. Second, no high-interest consumer debt. Credit cards, personal loans, payday loans. If it has over an 8% interest, it's got to go. Third, basic budgeting discipline. You don't need a sophisticated spreadsheet. You just need to know where your money's going every single month. If you can't answer that question right now, you don't have a money problem, you have an awareness problem. And lastly, fourth, an automatic savings plan. Pay yourself first. Set up automatic transfers so that money goes into savings and investments before you even see it. Once you have the foundation, that's when the strategy starts to change based on income. Let's start with $40,000. If you're making $40,000 a year, I'm going to tell you something that might sound harsh, but it's the truth. Your biggest financial opportunity is not investing, it's increasing your income. Don't get me wrong, investing matters. But at this income level, the math is simple. If you save 10% of $40,000, it's $4,000 a year. Even with great returns, that's not going to change your life anytime soon. But if you increase your income from $40,000 to $60,000, that's a $20,000 raise. That's 5 years of savings in a single move. So here's the strategy at $40,000. Priority number one, skill stacking. You need to become more valuable in the marketplace. That might mean getting a certification, learning a high income skill like sales or coding or digital marketing, switching industries to one that just pays better, even negotiating for a promotion at your current job. Most people stay at 40K because they never invest in themselves. They grind at the same job for years, hoping that someone notices. That is not strategy, and you've got to change it. Priority number two, job mobility. The fastest way to increase your income is to switch jobs in a lot of cases. As an employer, I hate that this is true, but on average, people who switch jobs see between a 10 and 20% raise. People who stay put usually get a 3% cost of living adjustment. You should update your resume network and look at opportunities every 12 to 18 months. Priority number three, side income. If you've got a little extra time, use it to build another stream of income. That could be freelancing, side hustle, or just picking up extra shifts. At this stage, more money solves more problem than any investment strategy you can have. Now, does that mean you ignore investing completely? No. But here's the simple strategy to investing. Step one, contribute to your 401k up to the employer match. If your company matches 3%, you put in 3%, that's free money. Don't leave it on the table. Step two, though, open up a Roth IRA and start contributing. Even if it's $50 or $100 a month, invest in broad index funds like VOO or VTI and forget it. That's it. Okay, that's the strategy. At $40,000, your highest ROI is your earning power. Invest in yourself first, invest in the market second. Once you cross $75,000, the game changes a little bit. Here's what most people screw up. They start making good money at $75,000, $80,000, maybe $90,000, and instead of building wealth, they upgrade their lifestyle. They get a nicer apartment, they finance a nicer car, they start eating out 4 times a week instead of once, and suddenly, even though they're making $75,000, they feel just as broke as they did when they were making $40,000. That is called lifestyle inflation, and it's the silent killer of wealth. Priority one, avoid lifestyle creep. Just because you're making more money does not mean that you need to spend more money. The goal at this stage is to live like you're still making $50,000 or $60,000 and bank the difference. Priority number two, set up the 4 accounts. At $75,000 a year, you should get serious about setting up the 4 accounts that every American needs to have. Start with a high yield savings account. This is where that survival fund is going to go. Then you're going to set up your retirement accounts, your 401k up to your match, and your Roth IRA. Number 3, hear me out, cryptocurrency account. 1 to 2% of your income, not meme coins, put it in Bitcoin, Ethereum, blue chip cryptocurrencies that are tried and true that are going to be around forever. This is your asymmetric bet. It's not going to kill you if you lose it 1 to 2%, but if it goes up and does what experts think it can do, it can completely transform your life. And finally, 4, your overflow, your brokerage account. This is where all the money's going to go after everything else that you've done. Once you've filled the other buckets, you can dump into your brokerage account and you're going to go into broad-based ETFs. Priority number 3, fund these accounts. Okay, start automatically contributing to all 4 of the accounts. Even if it's small, get the system running. Put 3 to 5% inside of your 401k up to the match. Go 5 to 7% inside your IRA, 1 to 2% inside of crypto, and everything else will dump into your brokerage account. If you invest $15,000 a year from 30 to 60 with just the average 10% return in the stock market, you'll have over $2.7 million, but only if you stay consistent. Most people at this income level start and stop, and then they pull back. They never let compounding do its thing. Don't be that person. Once you cross the $100,000 mark, the strategy shifts again, and this is where it starts to get fun. Crossing 6 figures is a psychological milestone, but it should be a strategic one as well, because at $100,000, strategy moves from just saving money to owning assets, and this is where real wealth is going to begin to accelerate. Let me explain. Up until now, you've been focused on earning income and investing that income into the stock market. That's great, but the stock market gives you an average of around 10% a year in returns. The wealthy don't just invest in the stock market, they own things that appreciate and generate cash flow. Real estate, businesses, private equity, skills that compound. At $100,000, you should start thinking more about ownership, and here's how the strategy shifts. Priority number 1, fill the accounts, waterfall style, 401k, IRA, overflow into a crypto, and then everything else goes into the brokerage account. Priority 2, you're going to build your portfolio with intention. Now that you have real money to invest, if I had $1,000 a month, here's what I'd personally do. The first $400 I put into the S&P 500 ETF. Like VOO from Vanguard. It's got an extremely low fee and it's going to give you access to the top 500 stocks inside of America. Next, I put $400 of that into probably a total market index, something like VTI. Because with VOO, I have a lot of exposure to the top 500 stocks, this is going to diversify me a little bit more towards smaller stocks in the market. Then I take that last 20% or $200 and I put it in Bitcoin. Again, none of this is financial advice. It's just my personal take here on what I would do with $1,000. Priority number 3, though, consider real estate. At $100,000, you finally have the income and savings to start thinking about real estate. And real estate is one of the most powerful wealth building tools for everyday people. Leverage, tax advantages, and cash flow. Let me break down what this actually looks like at this income level. If you've been following the system and you've built some cash in the brokerage account, you might have, let's say, $20,000 or $40,000 saved up at this point. That's enough money for a down payment. With that down payment, you could do option number 1, house hack. Okay, this is my favorite entry point. Buy a duplex or a small multifamily property. Live in one unit and rent out the other. Your tenant pays most or all of your mortgage. You're building equity while living free or close to it. Option number 2, you could buy a rental property. If you're making $100,000 and you've got decent money saved up, you could put 20% down on a rental property. If you buy right and that property cash flows, say an extra $300 to $500 a month after all expenses, that's $3,600 to $6,000 every single year in passive income on top of the equity you're building and all the tax benefits you're getting. Option number 3, if you don't want to do the first 2, you could just buy a personal home if you haven't already. Look, if you're still renting and you plan to stay in the same area for 5 to 7 years, it's time to seriously consider just buying a primary residence. When you rent, you're paying someone else's mortgage, but when you own, every payment builds equity. You're essentially forcing yourself to save, and on top of that, real estate historically is almost always appreciated. Over the long haul, homes appreciate somewhere between 3 and 5% every single year. And don't forget the tax benefits. Mortgage interest is completely deductible. Property taxes, completely deductible. And if it's an investment property, you can even do cost segregation studies and get paper losses there too. Plus, once you own the home, you've locked in your housing costs. Rent goes up every single year. A fixed mortgage stays the same for 30 years. At $100,000, real estate should be on your radar. You don't have to go all in, but you should start learning, start looking at deals, start building relationships with people that know the game. And this leads me to priority number 4, look for equity opportunities and keep leveling up. I'm going to continue to drill increasing income into your brains. The truth is, if you can be in the top 10% of your field, whatever it is, a teacher, a plumber, an engineer, any field, you will earn more money than 90% of people. Keep Keep learning, keep growing, because the more you earn, the more you can invest. And finally, priority number 5, protect your wealth. Start thinking about a trust if you have significant assets or dependents, but don't overcomplicate it yet. Focus on building. At $100,000 a year, you are no longer just a saver, you're becoming an investor and an owner. That shift in identity is what separates the middle class from the wealthy. If you're making $250,000 or more, congratulations, you are in the top 5% of all earners in America, but here's the brutal truth. Most people at this income level are not wealthy. They're making great money, but they're paying 35 to 40% in taxes, and they've got money sitting in a 401k earning maybe 5 or 6% when they could be getting 15 to 25% returns, and they're leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table because no one ever taught them the game. At $250,000 or more, the game is no longer about earning more or saving more, it's about keeping more and multiplying more. Let me show you. Priority number 1 is now tax mitigation. At this level, you need tax strategists, not just someone to file your taxes in April. Here's how I think about taxes, then the 3 layers of tax mitigation, and you need all 3. Layer number 1 are the tax advantage accounts. You should already have this, okay? Maxing out your 401k, your IRA, maybe an HSA, but at $250,000, you're gonna need to get more creative. Look at backdoor Roth conversions, mega backdoor Roth strategies, but that's just the baseline. The real savings comes from the next 2 layers. Layer number 2, write-offs, and this is low-hanging fruit that most people miss. I'm talking about things like retirement savers credit if you can get your taxable income down to $76,000, which we're going to show you. Strategic business write-offs, deductions if you're self-employed, mileage, travel, charitable giving. But the big one at the end, number 3, tax advantage investments. This is where the real magic happens. These are the investments that not only make you money, but will also reduce your tax bill at the same time. Let me give you an example, okay? Heavy machinery investing. Here's how it works. Let's say you want to write off $300,000 off your taxes. You can buy $300,000 worth of equipment, tractors, dump trucks, forklifts, whatever it is, and lease them to companies that need them. Most banks will give you a 90-10 loan on the equipment, which means you could put $30,000 down and finance the other $270,000. Now here's the insane part. Under Section 179, you get to write off the entire $300,000 purchase in 1 year. So you put down $30,000 and you just saved yourself $80,000 a year in taxes, depending on your tax bracket. But wait, it gets better. You lease that equipment to the company that runs an Airbnb type model on heavy equipment. Now there's a couple of these marketplaces out there that will actually take your equipment and help you rent it on your behalf, and they'll pay you 12% return on your investment while also covering the loan payments. So now you invested $30,000, you saved $80,000 on taxes, and you're earning 12% annually on the money you invested. I've used this strategy for years. My effective tax rate over the last 3 has been like 2.7, and 5%. If you're not optimizing here, you're giving away 30 to 40% of your income to the IRS for no reason. This leads me to priority number 2, private markets. At this income level, you should have access to private equity, venture capital, and real estate syndications. And if you're not investing in private markets, you are missing out on some of the highest returns available. Let me break down what the perfect portfolio, in my opinion, should be. I call it the 30-30-20-20 rule. 30% of your portfolio is going to go into public markets. Okay, these are your index funds, your ETFs, your mutual funds, stocks, bonds, everything that the public can get. 30% is going to real estate. These are syndications, rentals, REITs, anything real estate related. 20% is going to go into venture capital, and 20% is going to go into private equity. This is how you beat the market. This is how you go from high income to multimillionaire. Now let's talk about real estate syndication. So instead of buying a single family property like you've always been taught, you're gonna pool your money with a bunch of other investors and buy a massive, let's say 200 unit apartment complex. You're gonna appoint a professional team to manage it for you. You get the cash flow, you get the depreciation benefits, you get a piece of the equity when they sell, and those returns are usually somewhere between 12 and 18% annually, plus you get all the tax benefits on top of that. Now let's talk about venture capital. I own equity in over 120 different companies. I own stuff like Ourine, Magic Spoon, Element, Pura, SpaceX at one point, household names, and I got in early. Now here's the truth about venture capital. 30% of these deals are gonna go to zero. 30% of them are gonna return your money. 30% might double or triple your money, but 10% of those are gonna go crazy. They 100x and make up for everything else. That is why diversification is so key in venture capital. If you invest in one startup, I legitimately have no idea if it's gonna moon or completely crash. But if I can get you to invest in 50 to 100 100 startups, $5,000 a piece. The law of averages will kick in and you're going to see somewhere between a 20 and 35% return. Lastly, let's hit on private equity. This is when you're buying into an established, cash-flowing business, not early startups. Think manufacturing companies, dental practices, HVAC, service-based businesses doing somewhere usually between like $1 and $50 million a year in revenue. Private equity firms buy these businesses, optimize operations, increase profits, and usually will sell them somewhere between 3 and 7 years later for a higher multiple. Your return comes from the cash flow during the hold period and then the big payout when they go to exit. The beauty about private equity is that you're investing in the businesses that already work. They're already profitable. The risk is lower than venture capital, but so are the returns. You're probably going to see somewhere between a 15 to 25% annually, which is way better than the stock market. At this level, you can invest in private equity funds. Minimums in almost all these investments are anywhere from $5,000 to $100,000. You're not buying the whole business. You're going in as a limited partner and you're getting a small slice of that upside. Now that you understand deal flow, it brings me to priority number 3, allocate capital like a pro. At $250,000 or more, you need to start thinking about your money like a business. You're not just saving anymore, you're allocating capital to the highest and best use. That means you're constantly asking, where can I get the best risk-adjusted return? If I have $100,000 sitting in cash, should it go into another real estate deal at 15%, a venture fund at 25%, heavy equipment at 12% so I can write off my taxes, your brokerage at 10%? The answer is you should do all of them, but it depends on your liquidity needs, your tax situation, your risk tolerance. But the point is, you've got to think strategically. You've got to also be liquid. You're keeping 20 to 30% of your portfolio in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, public markets, and cash so that you can take advantage of opportunities when they come up. And this leads me once again to priority number 4, think generationally. At this level, it's not just about you, okay? It's about your kids, it's about your grandkids, the legacy that you're building. That means setting up a trust to pass on wealth efficiently, funding 529 plans for education, investing in assets that appreciate for decades, maybe even creating systems so your wealth outlives you. In my opinion, the purpose of wealth is to bless the lives of other people. At $250,000, the difference between high income and being wealthy is all about optimization. If you can master these 4 priorities, tax mitigation, private markets, capital allocation, and generational thinking, you will go from making $250,000 a year to building a $5, $10, even $50 million net worth. That is the difference of being comfortable and being completely free. No matter where you are on this income ladder, the roadmap is always the same. Foundation, income growth, investing, ownership, optimization. Focus on the stage that you're in, master it, and then move on to the next one. And that's how you build real wealth. If this video helped you understand where you are and what you need to do next, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. I release videos like this every single week, breaking down exactly how I build wealth, avoid traps, and think like someone who's already made it. Remember this, your income level doesn't define your potential, it defines your strategy. Play the game you're in, not the game you wish you're in, and you'll get there faster than you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.